Today I'm going to go over the Springfield Hellcat Magazine Disassembly. The Hellcat has 3 different size magazines that you can get for it. If you purchase the Gear Up package, it comes with all 3. You have an 11 round magazine, a 13 round magazine, and a 15 round magazine. And they're all just a little bit different as to how you take them apart, how to remove the base plate on the bottom, just a little bit different than typical magazines. So we're just going to look at that real quick. You may also have the flush base plate for your 11 round magazine, and we'll show you that as well. Alright, so starting with the 11 round magazine, if you look in this hole carefully, you're just going to see a portion of the magazine spring in there. So all you need to do is get a pin punch or a screwdriver or something and push that down just a little bit, and then you can start pushing the base plate off. Now, word of caution here, please wear eye protection if you're doing this, or at least point this away from you. I'm going to point it in this direction so you can see what I'm doing, but this spring is under a lot of pressure, so as soon as I pull this off, the spring is going to want to go flying. So put your thumb over top, pull that off, and that spring, as you can see, is pretty forceful. So you can see on the bottom, there's just a little lip that catches on the spring to keep it in place. The spring just comes out, and this is the orientation where it goes in, and then your follower just falls out, and the follower looks like this, and this is how it goes in to the magazine when you put it back together. So these are relatively clean, but I'm just going to show you, this is the magazine tube. All you really want to do here is get a cotton cloth. I use cut up t-shirts, just kind of push that through the magazine tube to remove any dirt that has gotten inside, or you could spray some degreaser in here or alcohol, just something to clean the inside, but you don't really want to put oil in there. Clean the tube and just wipe down the spring with a cloth. It's real easy. Clean these magazines. Clean the follower up real good if it's dirty, so it's best to just use something dry or even soap and water, because this is plastic, so that'll do a nice job for you. And then the base plate, if it needs to be cleaned, just wipe that as well. Alright, to put the Springfield 11 round magazine back together, you want to hold the tube like this, and the follower, it goes in this orientation. So just put it in the bottom, slide it in, and then take your spring, and the spring is going to go in this orientation like this. So push it in. Alright, and now this part here is a little bit tricky, so we're going to put on the flush mount magazine to see how that goes on. It's going to go in this way with the flat part against the flat back of the magazine, so it's going to slide on from the front. Push the magazine spring down as best you can. Again, make sure you have eye protection on. Get it flush with the bottom of the magazine, and then start this sliding on there. Make sure it's all the way flush, and these slots go into the slots in the magazine base plate, and then kind of push that on. And once you force it in there, you'll see the spring has snapped into place, so it should look just like this when you look through that bottom. Make sure it's flush here and everything looks good, and make sure you can't push that off the front. Alright, now go to the other side. Make sure you can press down on this, and it goes in against the magazine spring. At the end of the video, I'm going to show you how I test every magazine after I reassemble it to make sure it's going to feed properly. Okay, and now we get to the 13 round magazine. So this is built and looks similar, although the bottom has a different kind of a base plate. So you see there's a piece of metal here. This is part of the base plate inside. And if you look right here, it looks like a button. It's not actually a button. It's part of a base plate that you're going to see in a moment. So what you want to do is push that base plate down until this piece of metal goes down as far as it's going to go. Start pushing it. Pull the pin out, and now you got it started. And again, make sure you have eye protection here, because this is spring loaded. Put your thumb over top. Pull that off. Okay, looks like that. And then this will spring up like this. So you got this strange kind of base plate connected on here. You can take that off if you want to clean it, but this is how it goes on there. This is the first magazine I've ever seen built like this. So anyway, the spring comes out like this, and this is the orientation of the spring. And then the follower drops right out, and this is the orientation that it goes back in. We're going to put it back together, and I'll show you how that goes. The follower, this kind of bigger flat piece, goes on the back of the magazine. So it'll drop in like that. Then your spring in this orientation goes this way. Push it in place. Alright, once you put the spring in, now you want to push the base plate down. You want to make sure that this metal piece is covering the spring, and push it down. Make sure that everything is flush with the bottom, just like that, and make sure this is on the outside. Alright, hold it down like that. Then take your base plate, holding it down nice and even. Slide that on. Make sure the slots are lined up properly. Hold this in place, and then slide that on over top. Alright, so it feels like it's on right now, but this is not correct. This has to go up into the base a little bit. So what you have to do is kind of force it down a little bit and just jiggle it a little bit until this piece pops back up in there. So this is how it should look, just like that. And that little piece that you see that you press down on should be pretty close to the bottom there. Alright, so that's how it needs to look. Make sure it doesn't come off when you press on it. And now your 13 round magazine is back together. Finally, the 15 round magazine. Now this one comes apart similar to the 11 round magazine. It just has this extra grip area here. So this is kind of tight, but this just pushes down. You could actually take this all the way off the magazine, and it goes on in this orientation like that. The flatter part in the back to cover this little gap in the bottom. And then to take the base plate off, just like the first one, you can see a little bit of the spring here. So what you need to do is just push that down, and then while you're holding it down, push the base plate forward until it starts coming off the magazine. Put your thumb over here, protect your eyes, pull this off, then the magazine comes apart just like the 11 rounder does. And then pull the spring out. The spring goes in this orientation. The follower just drops out, and it goes in this way. Alright, so just clean this up like we did the other ones, and the reassembly is just the opposite. Put this in here like that. You want to get the spring down in there as far as you can. Start the magazine base plate over the top until it gets in there. Make sure this part of the spring goes underneath once this comes on. Make sure you're lined up in the slots like that. And then push this magazine down in there. Once it snaps in place, you should be able to see that piece of the spring snapped in there, and just make sure the base plate does not push off with your finger. We can put the grip piece back on here, and that's going to go on this way. So you just push it on the top and then slide it all the way down so it looks just like that. Alright, whenever I'm done putting together a magazine, I want to make sure it is going to function properly in my gun. So what I do is I get some dummy rounds. These are A-Zoom dummy rounds. They come in packs of 10 or packs of 5. I generally use 5 at a time to test my magazines. So all I do is take the magazine that I just reassembled, and I load 5 dummy rounds into it. Alright, then I take my Springfield Hellcat, verify that it is unloaded, and I load the magazine with the dummy rounds in it. Close the action. So now I have a dummy round loaded in the chamber and 4 more in the magazine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to simulate firing the gun by just racking the slide briskly to the rear, and each time I rack the slide, one of the dummy rounds should be ejected and another one should be loaded. So I should be able to rack this 5 times, and on the 5th time it should lock back because the magazine is empty, and if everything is working properly, the slide will lock back on an empty magazine. So what you want to do is rack the slide to the rear, and then you want to let go of it and let it close on its own spring power. Alright, so I'm just going to do this 5 times and see how we make out. Alright, and it locked back on the last time, so it looks like this magazine is working properly. So you want to repeat this for the other magazines that you have reassembled. Alright, so if you found this video helpful, please hit like below. Please check out the description for some dummy rounds if you need them. Please subscribe, and thank you for watching.